Hello, hello, hello. Okay, welcome back everyone. We hope you enjoyed your lunch. So now let's move on to the next segment. This speaker session is titled Trends in Real Estate and Population Shifts. Remote work options fueled relocation trends in the previous months and also led to a significant slump in demand for homes near commercial places. How will the housing industry change because of this? Let's hear it all from an expert on the subject. We have with us today Mr. Mark Whitehorn, who is the president of DPI Showcase Websites.
Okay. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Welcome back, almost everyone. Some of us, the diehards are here. Okay. Welcome to Trends in Real Estate. Hope I'm going right. Get in the right direction. There we go. Okay. My name is Mark Whitehorn. I'm the president of DPI Showcase Websites. We are a tech company that has been creating websites and real estate products for realtors all around the country. We've been doing this for about 20 years now. Long time. Time flies, doesn't it? So I've been teaching classes at the Miami Association of Realtors for about the same amount of time. Teaching classes like finding buyers on the internet, farming for listings, surviving the first 6 months as a realtor. That's one of my favorites. And what I usually do is in the beginning of the classes is I teach statistics, what's going on in the marketplace. Because you know, before you get out of your bed, before you start doing business, before you start doing things, you want to know where to go and what to do, what's hot, what's not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you about an hour's worth of statistics in 30 minutes, 29 minutes. So it's going to be real fast-paced statistics. At the end of the class, I'll give you my email address, so if you want me to email you this presentation, I will do that, because it's going to go faster than I usually like. So what we're going to talk about changes in population, who's moving where, demographics, hot U.S. cities, and so on and so forth. You'll see it unfold. So first, let's go over headlines. Now, you know, we're in a pandemic, or maybe we're coming out of a pandemic, one never knows. And there's been whole changes in population shifts going on. So let me show you some of the headlines as to what people have been saying. So the first one is 8.9 million people. 8.9 million people relocated since the beginning of the pandemic, which is a lot of people. The next headline is the South and Midwest regions are gaining larger shares of home buyers. And if you look here, the top line here, this is the South. So as they say, the South is rising. Smaller metro areas are gaining population during the pandemic. So here is the blow up of that chart. So here are the biggest gains. Here, the first one is Jacksonville. Now, I never considered Jacksonville as a smaller metro area, but I'll take it, whatever it says. So, Jacksonville's pretty large. So the first one is Jacksonville, then we have Salt Lake City, Sacramento, Milwaukee, and one of my favorite cities, Kansas City, Mo, because I'm a sucker for barbecue, and, you know, there's nothing better than it there, okay? And some of the biggest losers, we have New York City, San Francisco, Seattle, Boston, and Portland, Oregon. Zillow did a study. Now, Zillow does lots of studies. I know some people love Zillow, some people hate Zillow. It's all over the board. But they do some really good studies. So they did this one study that found that there's a shortfall of 1.35 million homes in the U.S. Now, I recently saw another article that said we're short about 3 million homes in the U.S. So we can quibble about those numbers later, but the bottom line is we are short. And if you look at the chart here, I know this is hard to read. I mean, I'm down here reading it like this. Number one is Chicago. Then we have Pittsburgh, Detroit, St. Louis, Cleveland, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, and so on and so forth. Then there's another article about millennials. Millennials are like really ruling the real estate market right now. 43% of home buyers are millennials. They're basically, they're getting married, they're giving up their rentals, they're buying houses in neighborhoods where there's yards and parks and schools because they want to have kids. And they're really driving a lot of what's going on in the marketplace. How we doing? Everyone doing all right? All right. All right, let's look at some statistics. The first thing I want to go over is a real estate term. It's called months supply. This is basically a gauge for realtors. And everyone know, anyone here? All right, I got a couple. Basically, months supply is how much inventory is in the pipeline. So for example, if no new listings came in, how long would it take to sell everything that we have? Months supply. So the middle is 6 months supply. Less than 6 months supply is a seller's market, low inventory. More than 6 months supply is a buyer's market, too much inventory. Got it? So they did a study and they found that we're sitting at 2 months supply of single-family homes in the country. This is really low. This is dangerously low. This is an extreme seller's market. That's why you have the bidding wars. In addition to this being low, this is bad for the economy. This has ripple effects. For example, someone buys a house, where's the first place they go to? Home Depot. You get a free cup of coffee. Okay? Home Depot. And then they go and they buy flooring, and then they buy gardening stuff, and they... In 2008, we saw the ripple effects in the economy. So this is really bad. Now, before COVID, when I was teaching my marketing classes to realtors in Miami, I would get the question, are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market? And I would say we're in both. With single-family homes, we're in a seller's market, low inventory. But when it comes to condos, they built too many condos in Miami, we were in a buyer's market. And then it also had to do with price points and things like that. All right? And then here we have the inventory levels, and as you can see, the inventory levels have just dropped. 65% of U.S. homes were owner-occupied in 2020. 42% of homes had one or more people 60 years and over. This translates to nearly 52.3 million homes. One of the positive effects of the pandemic is that people were closer to their families. Many of them decided to live together so they can take care of their parents. So a lot of kids are moving back to take care of their parents. For example, across the street from me is a woman. She is a widow for about 10 years now, and then recently her son and his family, wife, the 2 small kids recently moved in. And they're there living with mom. And, you know, I see the son painting the house and doing the gardening and all that. But that is a big trend that's going on right now. And then here we have this is an interesting chart. Households with people 60 years and over. So tied for first place, we have Hawaii and Florida. Go Florida. Go Gators. Any Gators in the room? All right, Gators. Then we have West Virginia, Delaware, Maine, New Mexico. Yes, sir.
You say that you don't need owned necessarily on 60 years.
It's not necessarily owned. It's just people living in there.
Yes. Most of that is owned, or?
So we come back. His question is most of that owned? I don't have an answer for that. They didn't break that down. But if you go back a few slides, 65% of U.S. homes were owner-occupied. So you can kind of like pull it out of there.
I guess what I mean is it owned by a person who's 60 years or older, or owned by a child?
If I had to guess, I don't have the answer to that, but I had to guess, I would say it's owned by the person 60 years and over. If I had to guess. All right, don't worry. 12% of the population moved in 2020. So let's look at a breakdown on this. 40.3% million people moved. 53% moved within the same county. 25% moved to a different county in the same state, and 18% moved to a different state. I love numbers. He wants to know what the most popular ones. I'm going to keep you in suspense for about 5 minutes. All right? Yes, ma'am. Sure. Where's the data come from? That's amazing. It's coming from lots of different sources. I get a lot of from the National Association of Realtors. The Florida Association has a lot of good stuff. Zillow has good stuff. There's a trade organization, Inman, I-N-M-A-N. He does a lot of coaching for realtors. He has a lot of good data. So I'm pulling it in from all sorts of stuff. And you caught me, you're right. I should have put that little thing on the bottom that said sourced by next year. I'll have that, okay? Thank you. And here are the top 10 destinations. So we have Dallas, Phoenix, Atlanta, Charleston, Provo, Utah, Boise, Idaho, Spokane, Washington, Madison, Wisconsin, whatever. Indianapolis, sorry if anyone's here from Madison. And Des Moines, Iowa. Dallas, Fort Worth. Dallas attracted the largest number of movers of nearly 250,000 people in 2018. Atlanta, what stands out about Atlanta, the Atlanta metro area, is that it has the highest share of workers working from home at 8.8% compared to the national share of 5.6%. Anyone from Atlanta? Love Atlanta. I love Atlanta. Atlanta is a great metro area. It's always been that way. And what happened is it became a mini tech place. Atlanta, go figure. And Phoenix, the Phoenix metro area attracted the largest number of movers from West Coast metro areas. It's the third largest destination of movers next to Dallas and Atlanta. I don't know what they're going to do for water, but that's another class. All right, and then here we have the top hottest housing markets. I know you can't read that, so I'll just read it off. Manchester, New Hampshire, Santa Cruz, California, Raleigh, North Carolina, Springfield, Massachusetts, Topeka, Kansas, Rochester, New York, I don't know that one, it's cold there, Boulder, Colorado, Portland, and Salinas, California. So this is an interesting chart that I found. It's an interactive chart where you can plug in a state and it'll give you the statistics. So here we have outflows. So here I have top destinations for people who leave New York. A lot of them cross the Hudson River. They move to New Jersey. I know I have a niece who did that. Then they went to Connecticut, Florida. We're always talking about the New Yorkers who are coming down to Florida. Tennessee and Massachusetts. And then we have who's moving into the states. So I put in Texas. I know we have Texas in the house. They're coming from Arkansas. I just report the numbers, okay? California, a lot of Californians are going to move in there, or have been moving in there. Illinois, New York, and Kentucky. I don't know that one either. Then we have existing home sales by region. So, of course, the South is number one. The West is 21%, the Midwest 23%, and the Northeast is 12%. And then this is an interesting chart. This is existing home sales. So as you can see here, pre-COVID, I mean, it's jaggedy, but it's flat. Flat is good, okay? Flat is healthy. Listings come in, listings go out. That's healthy. Realtors have stuff to sell. It's good. COVID hit, and as you can see here, it dropped, deer in the headlights. All my realtor clients were like, what do we do? I had to start teaching marketing classes on Zoom, of course, as to what to do because of COVID, what to tell your clients because of COVID. And then mysteriously, about 90 days later, it was really a short period of time, the market skyrocketed. Just boom, off the charts. What happened was, I'll give you an example. We have Fort Lauderdale in just north of Miami. It's called Broward County. On the west side of Broward County are a lot of 55-plus communities, like Century Village, or as they call it there, Cemetery Village. And what people in the New York area were doing is they were having their realtors go there, take pictures of the units. You can buy a condo there, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom condo for like $130, $150. The realtors were taking pictures, texting it to their clients up north who were buying it sight unseen so they can ship their parents out of New York where COVID was rampant and move them down to Florida. And I have a lot of realtor clients who are making a ton of money selling that way. That's another version of iBuyers. It's not just the buying without actually seeing the property. And then, as you can see, it boomeranged up and it stayed at elevated levels. And then the median price of existing homes, of course, that has gone up. I just read an article the other day where in certain areas the prices have gone up over 20% in the past year. Kid-friendly areas is what they call them. Millennials. So the National Association, here I'm sourcing it, the National Association of Realtors comes out with lots of good studies. And they're great reads. I mean, they're like 30-minute reads, but they're really good. So here's two reports they came out with. The first one is the 2021 Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers. It's their 40th anniversary edition. And the second one is the 2022 Home Buyers and Sellers Generational Trends Report, which was really cool. So let me give you some snippets from these two reports. The first thing, I always like reviewing this because we always get the lines blurred. This is how do we categorize people. So the first on the left, we have the silent generation, 1925 to 1945. I don't know why they call them the silent generation. I don't get that. I'm the youngest of 5, and my mom was always yelling at someone, so I don't get that. And then after the war ended, we have the older boomers, 1946 to 1945, the younger boomers, 55 to 64. I'm a younger boomer. Then we have the Gen Xers, then we have the older millennials, 1980 to 1989, the younger millennials, and then we have the Gen Zs, 1999 to 2011. They didn't tell me what they're calling people after 2011. Anyone know that? I'm sorry? Alpha. Alpha, great, cool, thank you. So here they did, since it's the 40th anniversary, they did a comparison between 1981 and 2021. If you look on the left here, first-time home buyers, in 1981 it was 44% share versus 34% share. A lot of repeat buyers. The age of first-time home buyers went up from 29 to 33. We have the age of repeat buyers increased from 36 to 56 years of age. Now, boomers are competing with millennials for homes. That's a big problem that we have now. We have shortage of inventory, and boomers are competing with millennials for the same inventory. So this is entirely different dynamic from 2008, which was driven by lax lending. This supply and demand issue that is being guided by demographics. Millennials and baby boomers are orbiting the market for the same housing stock. These first-time home buyers and downsizing buyers are vying for the same property. What you're getting is you're getting a lot of boomers who are moving closer to their kids. For example, I have two sons who live in Manhattan, but one day they'll buy a house probably in Jersey, because they're with Jersey girls, so, you know. And my wife said, well, one day we're going to sell the house in Miami Beach, and we're going to be closer to the grandkids. And who am I going to be competing against for those houses? Millennials. There is another facet into this with the shortage of inventory. It's called aging in place. A lot of boomers are saying, we're not selling our house. We're not moving. You know, they're going to have to come and cart me out of the house. For example, I have two sisters. One lives in New Jersey. The other one lives in Philly. They can't move out of their house. I mean, it would take them a year to pack. And plus, when the kids come over with the grandkids, they have the house. So now we're decreasing the inventory levels, and then to make some complexity to it, we have the boomers and the millennials competing for that same small inventory. And then how many months supply do we have in single-family homes? 2. It's a very complex situation. Here is the age of home buyers, and the top here is 36 and 49. Here we have the age of repeat buyers has gone up to 56, and first-time buyers has increased to 33. One of the reasons this has increased, and we talked about it sort of this morning, student loan debt. It's a killer. Student loan debt is a killer. When a mortgage broker talks to you about buying a house, the first thing they ask you is, do you have any student loans? And then first-time home buyers in age group, we have 23 to 31 is 81%, and 32 to 41 is 48%. So this is interesting. This is the number of children under the age of 18 residing in a household, and I don't know whether they own it or not. So we have 1 is 13%, 2 is 12%, 3 is 6%, and none is 69%. But I question this number here, the none at 69%, because what they don't break down is how many of these homes have children over 18. Like my neighbor across the street, and also my neighbor next door, their son was in Manhattan finishing his senior year of college. COVID hit, they brought him home, he finished everything online, and he's still there, and he's 23 years old. So I don't know the breakdown here. Yes, sir, you had a question.
How are you using that term here?
100%. Basically, they don't define whether it's a single-family home or whether it's a condo or whether it's owner or you own it or you rent it. They're not defining that. A household is, you know, 4 walls, people living in a communal space. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Address?
An address, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. So in an apartment building, you may have 200 households. This is new versus used or resold. So basically, as you could see on the left, oops, wrong way. If you see here, 85% of the sales were previously owned homes versus 15%, which are new homes. And then you have buying new versus previously owned. So the reason people buy new homes, we have avoid renovations or problems with plumbing or electricity. ability to choose or customize details, amenities of new home construction communities, lack of inventory of previously owned home, green energy, smart home features. Some people buy previously owned homes because they say it's a better overall value, better price, more charming character, lack of inventory of new homes. So all you builders in the room, get on it. And then some of them are DIYers. They want to fix it up themselves. All right, so summary. We have around 2 months' supply of single-family homes in the marketplace, which, as I said, is really dangerous to the community, to the economy. 65% of U.S. homes are owner-occupied. 42% of homes had one or more people 60 plus. The top 3 destinations are Dallas, Atlanta, Phoenix. The median age of first-time home buyers has increased to 33. The median age of repeat buyers has increased to 56. 69% of homes have no children under 18, but once again, I questioned how many of those have children over 18. They didn't break that down. And 51% of home buyers are moving to the suburbs. I have a few minutes. Do I have any questions? So he's asking me about foreclosures. That's interesting because at the beginning of COVID, all I kept seeing were headlines like, it's going to be foreclosures, it's going to be 2009 all over again. It didn't happen. It didn't materialize. The government stepped in and kept houses from going into foreclosure. So now what I see is foreclosures are only about 1% of the market.
They're going like this,
So
which clearly shows, that medium age of repeat buyers increased to 56, and the medium age of first-time buyers increased to 33, and that's the why I'm talking about. Which clearly kind of goes back to what we were saying on the panel earlier, as access to homes is getting harder and harder. So I think that's interesting and good to point out. I like.
Great, thank you. So what I find is it's going to fall back to the parents. If you're a millennial and you're sitting on $50,000 in student debt, it's going to fall back to your parents to help you get that deposit for the house, or maybe even co-sign for the house. That's where I see what's going on now. I mean, the federal government just delayed student payments again, student loan payments again, but I think we're going to need to do more than that. Any other questions? Okay. Here's my information. If you email me, don't text me, please, because then I got to go and email it. I just want to be able to hit reply and attach the thing. Can I tell you? I can email you today's presentation, and thank you for your time, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. That was very helpful. Now moving on, our next speaker session focuses on the power of communities and authentic connections in the world of real estate. Our next speaker will share her tips on how to market your niche by leveraging your culture and community and by harnessing your authenticity. Let's welcome Samina Chaudhry, luxury home real estate agent and partner of Keller Williams Lucido Agency and Lucido Global.
Hello, everyone. I'm Samina Chaudhry. I'm with the Bob Lucido team with Keller Williams Lucido Agency. We are one of the topmost Keller Williams teams in the world. Last year, we did a little over 1 billion in sales, and I am one of the team's top agent in volume. Today, I'm going to talk about marketing your niche by leveraging your culture, community, and harness your authenticity. As a licensed real estate agent with 2 decades of experience and over 2,000 completed transactions, I know that I'm only one of million agents. Although this can feel somewhat overwhelming, our ability as agents to write a contract or close a transaction isn't what makes us special. But instead, it's our unique set of skills and values that we bring to each and every transaction that makes us stand out in the crowd. Who you are as a person, what your hobbies are, what your aspirations look like, that's what defines you outside of your work. The idea that you are one person when you are selling real estate and someone else when you're not is a misnomer, and it's harmful to finding your personal brand. Instead, focusing on who you are as an individual, what differentiates you in the market, is your superpower. Establishing this authentic niche that refines your clientele and caters to your distinctive specialties is the key to success. So you may ask, Samina, what's your niche? What do you do? What makes you so special? What makes you stand out? I often get asked, what's my one-liner? What is the thing that makes me stand out? And when I first started as a real estate agent, I always wanted to do something different than what everyone else was doing. I was always asking that question, why would clients choose me over 10,000 agents out there? And it really came down to my culture and my background. I was born in India, raised in Bangladesh, and then came to the US for my undergrad studies. My father was an entrepreneur in Bangladesh and later became the Secretary of State for Bangladesh. So being that foreign service field, I got to travel the world, see different cultures, and discover how people show their service across countries. I also speak 5 languages: Bengali, Urdu, Hindi, Arabic, and English. And I come from a Muslim background. I'm a minority, a first-generation immigrant, and I'm someone who believes in women empowerment. These aren't things I shy away from in my work. I actually cater to them. 80 to 90% of my clients are minorities, and I typically work with immigrant families. As someone who understands that big dream mentality of moving to a new country for better opportunities, I am able to provide my clients with a better life outside their home country while still maintaining the culture and community that they love within their new home. I try to give them the best of both worlds as someone who has done that exact thing in her own life. Before I dive into some examples of the way I leverage my authentic self, let me share with you how I got into real estate and found my niche. I'm one of 5 children, and daughter to both an incredible homemaker and entrepreneur. My parents taught us to work hard and be humble. So when I left Bangladesh to go to school in the States, I got my degree in interior design and then decided I wanted to get into real estate investment. So I got my real estate license. Started getting some clients, really enjoyed my work. The creative mind in me never got bored with houses, so that is where I stayed and where I continued to expand my career. In addition to what my parents instilled in me, I love learning how successful people made it in this country from nothing and found their American dream. One book that opened my eyes to looking at myself from an immigrant's perspective is Brian Buffini's book, The Immigrant Edge. What does immigrant mean? We are used to the word immigrant, but there's a word in English called emigrant. Now, emigrant means that you have left your own country permanently to settle in another. What does an immigrant have that most American who are second or third generations don't? In Brian's book, there are 7 characteristics that successful people or immigrant that you will not find in others. They are willingness to learn, okay. A voracious openness to learn, a do what it takes mindset, a willingness to outwork others, a heartfelt spirit of gratitude, a boldness to invest, a commitment to delay gratification, and lastly, an appreciation to where I came from. Each of these traits are tied together by one overarching attitude. Successful people see opportunities where others see problems. So that is what I did. I never shied away from being different and always used my creativity to create solutions for people going through something I had gone through many times before. Buying a home in a foreign land where it is not always easy when you are new to the country or when you don't have anyone guiding you. I was able to tell my clients, if you're from India or Bangladesh or Pakistan or the Middle East, I speak your language. I know the way you grew up back home because I grew up the same way. The parties that your parents had, mine through the same ones, I leveraged my ability to understand their lifestyle and their culture by personalizing the entire real estate process and going above and beyond to provide a deeper cultural experience. As I show houses, I keep in mind many things that South Asian cultures value in home and a community. I frequently use a compass to show clients around a potential property. Many of you probably know the word Feng Shui as the traditional Chinese practice of arranging pieces in a living space to create balance within the natural world. But do you know the term Vastu? In India, Vastu actually predates Feng Shui and uses earth, water, fire, and air space to determine the imperfections of a property. While both use the 8 compass directions to determine placement and architecture, Vastu considers the Northeast to be exceptionally auspicious and to be the main direction of a home. Vastu also says that your master bedroom should not be located above a room with a fireplace. as not to add flame to a relationship. So I learned to carry a compass with me at all times and know the rules of Vastu like the back of my hand. Let's talk about social connectivity and community. Entertaining guests is also a major part of Middle Eastern and South Asian culture. So parking is a primary consideration to a prospective property. I won't even show a house that can't accommodate this need. For if I think the neighbors would have an issue with big parties. In addition, this type of thinking, I also give suggestions on how to find a community within a new city. I connect my clients with restaurants that serve their favorite international cuisine, a CPA in the area that speaks their language, and pay attention to small details of moving that others may overlook. I pride myself on helping clients ease into a new chapter of their life by doing half of the homework for them in a new city. When you care about your clients and their needs, it is very easy to know what to focus on. It's also fulfilling to help them attain their goals, to respect their culture needs, and to use creative thinking when the pieces don't go together easily. Okay. As an immigrant myself, I'm actually aware of what is involved with assimilation into a new environment. I know the importance of preserving one's culture and lifestyle. It's not only essential to connecting and communicating with clients, but also understanding the style and features of a property that you can and showing your true self is rare. We often feel like we have to stifle ourselves or dial back our personality to fit into a certain mold. But what is important to remember is that we can't be liked by everyone all the time. So we may as well be the version of ourselves that we like. That feels true. And hope it attracts people of the same kind. Find what is that sets you apart from other competitors. What are those unique traits skills that you bring to the table? What are those things you care about outside of your work that you can incorporate into your specialty? Establish your authentic niche is a strategic way to have a personal brand work for you overnight. Don't be afraid of your uniqueness and never erase your culture. Leverage it. If anybody has questions, I would love to answer. Yes, Candy?
I just have to say that was amazing. And what you're saying is exactly what's happening today, is that people are realizing that we've gone too far with this being fake, and we need to start bringing back real, and people are surprised. So I thought that you said it was eloquent and beautiful. Thank you. I don't have a question, I just wanted to say that.
You know, one of my most memorable memory of going on vacation was a trip to India. And, you know, we always talk about like the Ritz-Carlton service, or like, you know, the service that you would get in Starbucks. But I would say make a trip to India and stay at one of those hotels that has been turned from a palace to a hotel. I remember visiting this hotel in Hyderabad in India. It was a palace, summer palace for a king in 1950s. And we got to the gate of the hotel. The hotel was on top of a hill. We got down, they put us on the luggage got on a golf cart, and they put us on a horse chariot. And we went from a horse chariot up to the top of the hill in front of the hotel, where somebody was waiting for us with a welcome drink and put a garland on me. And the steps to go up to the top of the lobby in front of the building, as I was walking up the steps, from top of the balcony of the hotel, they were showering me with petals, rose petals. And that is an experience to remember for the rest of your life. And I was thinking, how can I incorporate that kind of experience into my real estate transactions for my clients? That's what would make me unique and stand out in the crowd. And that's what I strive to do every day. Anybody else have any questions? The other thing you could do is grow your network. You know, within the team, I have somebody who is, we call it the help system. I have a lot of home buyers, or home sellers actually, who are in their 50s and 60s, and all their equity, the money that they have, are in the house. So when I tell them that, you know, you have to bring this house that looks like the Brady Bunch house from the 70s and 80s look to today's look, update it, they don't have the cash in hand. So I found the help system where contractors do the work and they get paid at settlement when the seller gets the money. So these are unique services that you have to cater to and give that Ritz-Carlton leverage service that makes you stand out in the crowd. The other one is, we call it the silver group, where this is mainly for buyers or sellers that are 55 and older. There are a lot of kids whose parents are so old, they don't know what to do with the house that they have to sell. We come in, we take all the things in the house and we divide it into four. One set of inventory goes to trash, one is sold, one the children take it with them. We do all those, we provide all those services to do all those inventory for them and help them move the things out of the house before the house is sold. Then we have a director of Silver Group who has connections with all the assisted livings in the area, where she consults with the family, the children, the parents, and asks them that what are you looking for the assisted living for your parents. They tell her all those things and she matches them with the assisted living services in the area. So these are external services that I help gather and provide to make the transaction easy for the clients. Yes, Candy?
Niching down yourself,
Yes.
figure out what about it is, what about me? What are some things that you give advice to somebody who might not have known what their loves are? Because if you, like, if I went and tried to join a mechanic shop, they kick me out laughing because they knew I was just a realtor trying to get work. How do you figure out like the best niche?
I would say that first, when you're trying to grow the network with the vendors, I would say meet with them for lunch or coffee or dinner, whatever it takes, or even breakfast. Everybody has their own special timing. Cater to them, sit with them, and talk to them, ask them what they're looking for to grow their business, and then tell them that how you could help them with that, and then how you want them to create a win-win situation for them with the referrals.
Thank you. I was wondering about realtors in the audience or listening
Yeah.
on the video later. How do they figure out, like me, say if I didn't know what my niche were, what do I look? Do I look at like recreational, church?
Like you have kids. You were saying, Candy, earlier that, you're doing activities within the school. I recently, my kids went to this high school, which is very popular in the area. So what I did was they actually reached out to me and said, our band team needs a donation, okay? So what I said that, look, you are calling every person every year for the band team to gather a donation. What if I could make the deal sweeter for you? And I said, make me a part of your PTA, and all you PTA members, why don't you advertise me? Because with every transaction that comes from the PTA, you can say that I will give $500 donation as a referral to the PTA for every family member that buys or sells a home with you.
That's great, and that's valuable for
Yes.
for you, it's valuable.
Yes,
That's-
so
thank
now
you.
I'm a part of their PTA magazine, and it is advertised there that Samina will donate 500 to the PTA band or dance team or whatever it is, for every family that buys or sells with her.
Wonderful. Thank you, and genuine care.
Yes,
We can all-
and genuine care, giving back to the community. Yeah. Anyone else? We also have an auction program that for higher end properties that don't sell to the current market that is higher, we even try to auction it out. And I was talking to Simon earlier. So we have that program as well. So you have to build your programs, you have to cater to all the problems in the community and see how you can find a solution and stand out in the crowd with your authenticity. Okay, thank you everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Samina, for sharing those ideas. Now moving on, according to numerous studies, 85% of people charge their electric vehicles at home. However, apartments and condos aren't equipped to enable continuous EV charging. How can the real estate world rise up to this new challenge? To answer this question, we have with us Paul Nyson, who is the founder and president of EV Charge for You, Inc. The topic is EV charging and multifamily housing. Please welcome him with a warm round of applause.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Nyson, EV Charge for You. I come originally from the Netherlands and got the challenge to work here in the United States, started from scratch again. And working for a boss, I was not so happy, so I quit my job and got in a niche called EV charging 10 years ago. And because I was lucky that Tesla asked me if I could help them out with troubleshoots and installations. In California, we have a mandate that in 2035, all the gasoline cars are going not for sale anymore, the new ones. Washington State even put the bar higher, 2025, and to try to get the greenhouse gases down with 50%. So what does that mean? There are some data. This is a little bit from last year, and I'm afraid these numbers are correct anymore because the sales are going to the roof on this moment with electric cars. But account for 3% of all registered automobiles are now electric cars in the United States. Arizona, Nevada, Florida have a population already from 5%, and California has it for 10% already. The government helps a little bit with making the transition for everybody, what means They subsidized with 7,500 incentive. And other than that, there are also incentives for installations in multifamily housing. So the government wants to have 450,000 stations over the United States. I think it will be probably more to 1 million, but it's public charging stations, and I'm talking about multifamily housing today. Millennials. They did a survey in 2019 that 63% of the millennials between born 1982 and 2002, that they are thinking to get an electric car. What does that mean? You need to make the infrastructure, isn't it? Low-income housing is a little bit more difficult. Government will help there an additional cost to help them out with not only purchasing the car, but also installing the charging stations at home. So multifamily housing, 50% of the residents in California live in multifamily housing. That's a lot. And to get everything rolling, we need to get these charging stations in the multifamily housing. There are several ways to do it. The benefits, of course, is you charge at home, you have a lower fuel cost, and it will be also nicely to warm up your car from your home, from your app in your phone, so that you go in a warm place, warm car, without all the pollution running that diesel truck or the gasoline car for 5 minutes before you leave. So facts, she talked already about it, about 85% of the people charge at home. And that's gonna be a tough cookie to get everything running smoothly. Property values. So if you don't have an EV charging station now at the multifamily housing, the equity goes down with minus 7,000. If you install one, you have already 30,000 plus, and they even think that, or they estimated that it's gonna be $50,000 to $80,000 in equity in the next coming years. So site assessments. That's the most difficult thing from the electrician, because the electric car charges we need to see as air conditioning. We call that a continuous load. So we need to have 125% of the load we need to count, and we can do that with a 110 outlet or 120 volt outlet. We call that level 1. But it means that your car only will charge with 3 miles an hour. And nobody's going to be happy if you have a car with 200 miles. That car is sitting there in the parking stall for 78 hours. So what do? We try to make the cost, of course, for everybody best as possible. And how shorter the runs, of course, how cheaper the installation is, especially now building prices, steel prices are through the roof. And so the cost went up significantly for that. Other thing is you need to think about trenching. I mean, you have condominiums with the car chargers outside. Brings up the cost too. So how much will this cost? Well, it depends on where do you live. Is the property deeded? Or do you have an open parking space where they can move around? You guys know all about that as realtors. And what is the existing electrical infrastructure? That's a key part. And then, of course, the last part, what system should I use? This is my favorite one, actually. we had it earlier in the topic that people in California and probably other states going to follow through also, that you can charge from your own electrical meter so that an HOA or management cannot stop you with having a charging station. You pay them directly to your utility company, and that's the best way because there are no hidden fees. As soon if I come to a place where you're going to have charging stations with a back-end system, your annual fee is going to be between $200 and $400 per port. That's going to be a lot, and you didn't even charge. Additional charge over the electricity use because the back-end providers want to make money. Sometimes the HOAs want to make money too to get that $200 to $400 back. But the downside also is you need a good cellular service or a Wi-Fi service because otherwise they cannot talk to the back-end system and you cannot pay. Other downside is that all the buildings don't have the capacity. So that means that everybody comes from one panel and you get a slower charge, but it will load manage over the whole section. I advise everybody who thinks about it, because it will change over the whole United States. If you see incentives, think about it and take it. It doesn't say, a lot of people say, what is the ROI about a charging station? I can tell you, if you want to make money on it, it's not going to happen. It is more convenient for your residents who can charge their car. And if you want to sell that, of course, you have an extra equity. Having an EV charging station behind the load management box is better when you connect it to your personal unit. There are no hidden fees. So that's why I'm here on stage talking about this. I know it's a very short presentation because I was hoping for a lot of questions. So I say, go for it if you have questions, or do it afterwards.
It's on?
Yep.
Okay. I work for a multi-trade design build contractor. We actually do work in 28 states, and right now we're running into this on a lot of our projects where they want to build in infrastructure for the charging stations. I just had a project where we had a 2,000 amp service for the house service, and they wanted to put in, they had originally 12 charging stations, they wanted to put in 48 more.
Yeah.
So we had to upsize the service
Yes.
on a project that we had already bought for, a design price to a 2,500 amp. And I know some owners and developers see that up front and they build in the infrastructure up front, but then other ones already have locked in on something, and then they're saying, well, I need charging stations. They've got to go back to utility, they've got to upsize their services, they've got to put in more switchgear, they've got to figure out how to get all this stuff to the charging station. Do your charging stations have sharing load where you can have 2 charging stations but only 1 feed, and it reduces the amount
Correct.
from a 7.6 kW to 3.8 per station, so that it just takes longer to charge it? Those are the kinds of issues we're running into.
Yeah. Sometimes we go, so what I like to do is run a dedicated circuit to every charging station and give them a 40 amp and then do the load sharing instead of having 1 charging station and having 2 ports on it, because you're limited. It's also a good idea. I know the utility companies like PG&E does the same thing on this moment to keep their costs low, because they thought they go into this program and thought, oh, we can do it. And they run over budgets and they need to shut the program down. So, and what they didn't anticipate, next to that, the cellular service. You need a good cellular service in the garage. And that became my other niche, because the other contractor didn't do his work right. So Yeah, that's why I like to. That's why I prefer one of these boxes. If especially with HOAs where they don't want to change, and if you don't want to change, then you're going to lose on your residents because they will not come to your place. They're going to move out. I saw also people, and I heard it this morning also from somebody here who said, the person moved to a condo and couldn't charge his Tesla and needed to sell his car. Yeah, that's a sad story, I think.
Infrastructure that has to be built in. So instead of
Yeah. The only thing what the United States miss still is a good competition in dynamic load management. And in Europe, it's already normal, where you check what the grid, what do you get from the utility company. If nothing goes to the household, everything can go to the car. That will change. They need to change because there's not enough capacity. Say it again? Yeah. But yeah, that's why I said this is a good choice what you can do. Go from your electrical meter. If it must be, of course, in the garage.
yeah, we're doing multi-story, 30, 40-story buildings.
Yeah. Yeah, then you're limited in what you can do.
Yeah.
But at least you do something about it already.
Yes. Yes.
That's a good story. So, are there more people?
Is somebody over here? Yes.
Just a simple question. What type of coding, does it falls through?
The NEC?
Yeah.
Yeah, the electrical code in NEC, yes.
Okay. Okay.
695.
695. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
This gentleman is very good on this code book.
Hi, it's probably difficult to come up with a number, but in a single-family residence is being built.
Yeah.
To put this service in while the house is being built,
Yeah.
is it a few $100s, a few $1,000s, $10,000? What is the effective approximate cost?
So I will be honest. The San Francisco Bay Area is a little bit higher than everybody else. If I need to come into a house myself, and in an ideal situation, your main panels on the wall of your garage, sometimes it's not, and then you're going to be high out. With the charging station and with the permitting, it costs around $2,000. That's what you need to count. But if you put the wire in, and please do copper wire and don't throw aluminum wire in. I saw contractors doing that too, with the problem that started, the wire get loose, warm, and it starts a fire. So don't do that. Keep it copper wire if you throw something in the wall, Romex 6.3 or 6.2. But then it's just a couple of $100. The charging stations are between $560 to say $1,000 roughly. That's where you need to count the range, including tax.
Right.
Yeah. But putting in directly from your new panel, your 200 amp panel, a Romex wire in within point, what is it, $300?
Yeah.
Max.
Okay.
Well, all the panels are now already 200 amp anyway in the new housing. Yeah. I'd love to talk to you.
To upgrade the electrical distribution system.
No,
You
that's
may
the
have-
last thing I want to do, upgrade. I don't upgrade panels.
Okay. Then you have to put them in at
I stick
120 and
with
let
it.
them charge slower. Then you have to put them in at 120 volts and let
Nope.
them charge
No.
slower.
No, this little box, and a few more, like this concept, where I do a load management and it has a threshold of 80%. So if I hit the 80%,
Okay.
and so if you have, Thanksgiving, you have the pool running, you have the air conditioning running, the wife is making dinner, and you get over the threshold of it, and you charge your car, and you come over the threshold of 80%, that box stops the charge that this charging station is going further.
So you're still putting in a 2-pole 40 amp breaker for those?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
240 volt?
Yeah. 40, 50, 60.
Teslas, yeah, the higher ones.
Well,
get the
most new
the
cars
full
are going
range.
to, they want a 60 amp breaker, but most of the time you don't even need it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I had people happy with a 30 amp breaker and a 24 amp charge.
Yeah.
So it's the mindset of people. They think that they don't get the car charge overnight. While
It'll
they
charge
drive
overnight,
only
yeah.
40 to 60 miles a day.
Right. You just won't charge it in an hour or two. Takes a little longer.
Hmm?
It'll take a little longer than an hour or two.
Yeah, that is, but still overnight it will, I have sometimes people where the cost is so high to get to the point where they want to charge. I always ask, how much do you drive a day? And I have people, I drive 20 to 30 miles. I said, put it in your kids' college fund, go on vacation, take your wife out for dinner, don't bug me. That's what I say to the people. It's not worth the money if you drive not enough. Then you just do a trickle charge on 110, and if you really need to travel, you go to a fast charge and be done.
Put in, because so many people are driving electric cars now.
Yeah. Yeah. More questions? There's still, for the newer cars, Tesla not. Tesla is pretty much over because they made more than 200,000 cars. And Chevy has the same problem. But otherwise, you have a tax incentive from $7,500. Other than that, the utility companies are happy to give you some money because you want to know where they need to upgrade the grid.
Right.
So they will give you most of the time between $500 and $800. That goes to the homeowner, not to me. No, it's go to a homeowner. Yeah, I can, let's see if I can go back. Here. This is more multifamily housing. But I had several clients who called me and said, Paul, I'm so grateful that you put a charging station in a year ago because my condo was gone in no time and I got a good price for it. So, you had a question? Adam?
I kind of want to know if you have any insight on this, but with living in the West, it's... Hello? We have a big problem here with brownouts, as they're called. In the summer, the power goes out.
Yep.
And it'll be out for hours at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, in San Francisco and Central California, you guys have an issue with fires and stuff like that. Has the electric companies really put money into making sure that once this is more, once this is implemented more in single-family homes and multifamilies, that we won't have that same problem? Because it'd be a pretty big issue if somebody lost power while they were sleeping overnight, went out to their car, and it's dead.
Correct.
Right. So do you know of any money that they're putting into the infrastructure as far as...
Infrastructure, of course, they tell you always that they do, but yeah. Well, the thing is, what PG&E and Edison likes to do is to have. Now I'm going all the way back. What they like to do is put public charging stations in, And the reason why they want to do that with the backend system, because if the power grid is getting overloaded, they can put from, like the AC units, they can lower the charge. So then it will charge slower, but then, but yeah, it's yes. Correct, correct. If that's one of these things what they do. So.
Solar energy?
Yeah, that works with it. Yeah, I mean, you have even solar inverters who have a charging station. They are there if you want to combine that.
Right.
So
Special that I need to do? Or it's just the same installation, same process?
solar is a little bit more complicated, I think, than this whole thing. I mean, this is just an electrical component what you use.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it's, I mean, the only thing what an electrician needs to do is use the right wire size so that you don't get in problems.
Right.
Like what I said, aluminum wires, but also if you have wires what are undersized, because the national code says, oh, I can use number 8. If I had a building in California where the electrician prepped everything for me, and I want 6-gauge wire. And when I showed up on the job site, it was 8-gauge wire. I said, stupidity is not on my liability, so take it out. And it needed to replace every wire. Because it is very true that if you undersize your wire size, then you're gonna have a problem. It's the same thing when there's a product on the market like NeoCharge. You can plug it in your dryer plug. And you can, if the dryer doesn't work, you can switch it to your electric car. Now the problem is, your 10-gauge wire, what is most of the time Romex in the wall, is not used to the continuous load. So what do you get? I get the phone calls half a year later, my charger doesn't work. I say, yeah, it doesn't work because your wires, you're lucky that you didn't start a fire. So.
Question. One is, what do you do with the deal with the different type of configurations of the actual ports within the cars, the charging port?
There are only 2 charging ports pretty much when you talk about level 2, because
Right.
I think level 2 is more than enough. Fast charges are great when you travel, but level 2 is what is 208, 240 volts is good enough. There are only two different ones. The proprietary from Tesla, and you have a J1772 here in the US. Yep. So there are both ways. You can buy a Tesla charger and get an adapter from $700, or you get, if you have a Tesla and you have a regular charging station like here, like this Blink, then Tesla gives you the adapter already with the car. So you just charge with an adapter. Works fine.
And the second question is, can you convert those with a credit card port?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. With a credit card. So in California, there's a law since 2021, January 2021. You need to have in the public charging stations, the public locations, you need to have a credit card swipe. But other than that, you don't. What I don't like about it is that most people who have an electric car have already a phone with an app. Or you have an RFID card where you can pay with. That screen, there's an extra burden for vandalism. I mean, my team gets several times per year sent out because these charges have a screen, and they got beaten up. I mean, good for us that we can change them, it's work, but that's not how it should work. So I prefer not to have a charging station with a screen. But that's pure California, and New York is probably going to go also to that soon. Anybody else? Good, well, thank you.
He's in the room, but we're not
There's
sure.
a next speaker show up? No, I haven't seen the next speaker.
I kept asking and they said he's in the room.
What mic can you give me?
He said that he's in the room. Yeah.
The next speaker.
Sam.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I think everyone definitely learned something in that session. Now let's quickly begin the next speaker session before the tea break. Brokers who have plans to start their own next-gen firms will find this session really insightful. Please join me in welcoming the speaker, Sam Castle, Chief Revenue Officer at Radius Agent. He'll be sharing his ideas on the topic, building a contemporary brokerage, technology, and staffing.
General. It should work with anybody. Oh, I'm actually going to, I just don't have to yell the whole time? Okay. It should work with, sorry. It should work with anyone who's building anything. And then the last slide all talks about, pardon me, velocity. To arm the hero a little bit, talk about who I am. The first company I helped grow, I was 23 years old. I was hired on as a bouncer. By the end of that first year, I need like a stool and a glass of water. I feel like a stand-up comic.
It's got to be close to your mouth.
That's what she said. So, sorry, mixed group. So when I was 23 years old, I got hired in as a bouncer in St. Louis at a place called MP O'Reilly's. If anyone lived there or visited in the 90s or early 2000s, you probably had a beer or hard liquor there. By the end of the first year as a general manager, by the end of my third year, we had opened up two other locations. And that was my first real experience with, and I kind of just happened into it, with scaling a company and growing a company. Highlights from LinkedIn would probably be the time I spent at Lending Club. I joined when it was a pure startup and ran one of the 3 business units through post-IPO. And then something that's more specific to the space and the conference that we are today, I spent 2 years, just over 2 years at Fly Homes, helping them scale from pre-A to post-C round and getting close to $1 billion valuation. Currently, and the current love of my life is Radius. We are a contemporary brokerage. We're headquartered in San Francisco. We're multi-state, we're vertically integrated. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is kind of the manifestation, the materialization of a lot of the stuff that I'm about to cover. Okay, not the bottom button. Okay, it's gonna happen. Perfect. What is a traditional brokerage, right? So tradition just means simply handed down. You got those pair of old shoes that your older brother gave you. It's very contract-based. It's brand obsessed. It's a pyramid model. It's usually from like one excellent salesperson and they have too many leads, so they add people just as if it was a lawn service sort of thing. You get too many clients. You got to expand it. Minimal division of labor. Maybe they have like a marketing specialist, some TC, some transaction coordinator, something like that. But it's also entirely, commission funded. The agent is the single source of revenue, which sets up an interesting relationship between the brokerage and the agent. Could be contentious, could get to the point of being adversarial, because in order for the brokerage to grow, either they get more agents or they get more money out of that agents through desk fees, deeper commission cuts, or the like. It's wonderfully intensely local. Samina up here earlier, if she's still in the room, I thought that was a brilliant presentation about the authenticity and how to leverage your true self to really connect with the client, give them the service that they need and that they expect, give them a really great experience. And then that salesperson that started out, that individual agent, of course, grows up to be a managing broker. So not only are they a traditional sales leader, but they have to deal with the compliance, and then you have to multiply that by being a small business startup owner. It's a very complex space to be in. Not all of these things are bad necessarily, but this is kind of how I view traditional brokerages. If you have any naysayers in the room, please say nay. I promised I wouldn't do that. Okay, here we go. So in my view, what is a contemporary brokerage? So contemporary is simply of the present time. Where are we? What do we live? We live in an increasingly global community. It's tech-driven. We have innovative financial products coming up, cash offer, buy before you sell, the hopeful failure of the iBuyers, and greater access to data, which is not always a good thing. And then now with COVID, we have hybrid remote work settings and the like, and certainly tech-enabled. Everything's done on the phone these days, right? So the problem is with all of these opportunities, all of this new direction, comes countless problems, all right? Tech-driven, tech-enabled world means you have like almost an infinite number of CRMs you can choose from. What's the right CRM? How do I integrate with that CRM? So on and so forth. Remote work settings can often make us feel very isolated and make that human connection, which is the core of our industry, much more difficult. Greater access to data can lead to not only analysis paralysis, but just like forget about it, I don't even want to look at it. And often, if you don't apply data in the wrong way, you end up with very, very wrong conclusions, of course. And then with the innovative financial products, there's learning curves. You have to sit down and walk through what is a cash offer, how do we actually execute it. And I don't mean the traditional cash offer, I mean this new construct of cash offers which have been popping up over the past 2 years or 3 years or so. And then increasingly global. I certainly couldn't have said it better, but Samina really nailed that. I think that just her entire presentation kind of embodied where we are as an industry today as far as the global nature of it. So for me, what is a contemporary brokerage? Optimally, when you go back and you think about that incredible salesperson who became a managing broker and had to run the small business and had to be a sales leader and also had to make sure that compliance was done in the appropriate way, for me, the success metric is, are you spending the majority of your time growing your business, or are you spending the majority of your time operating your business, right? And operation can be a lot of fun. People love to operate, that's great, but then you're gonna need someone to, to be out there and actually grow the business for you. So, for me, the real estate professional, sorry about the typo there, but the real estate professional is still absolutely at the core of this. It's all about supporting them, facilitating them, and getting them in front of clients as much as they possibly can. You can think about Southwestern Airlines here, where their core metric is time in the air, or the inverse metric is time on the ground. So they're either minimizing time on the ground for their planes or trying to maximize time in the air, and that's how they drive a hyper-efficient business. Vertically integrated, so the agent isn't the sole source of revenue, kind of stepping aside or mitigating that potentially adversarial relationship, that contentious relationship. So having a mortgage bolt-on, having an insurance bolt-on, having auxiliary lines of revenue, I think are absolutely critical. Curated technology, if you think of over the past, like 50 years or so, we started with MLS, right? MLS was all in its own little tiny pods. No one could actually access it. Then it was brought together, and you had the aggregators like Zillow and Redfin and the like actually get it out there so the populace could go through and check out the homes on their own. Major advancement. You had DocuSign with e-signatures, major advancement. The cell phone itself, major advancement in being able to increase the velocity of communications. But over the past 10 years, there has been like a wildfire, a proliferation of tech tools and offerings that are out there. And if you're a small business owner, if you're running a smaller brokerage, You simply just don't have the time, resources, and most likely the experience and knowledge to make that CRM decision, to make all those technology decisions that are out there. So the brokerage is there for you as a partner to curate the technology, make sure you have everything you need, and hopefully know more. Knows how to leverage big data. I think that it's definitely critical. Brokerage branding itself is no longer actually the center. It's not about being with Sotheby's necessarily. It's about promoting the agent, creating a brand around the agent, and even diving into, we talked about the traditional brokerages earlier, diving in even closer to that localization, right? It's all about those close relationships. Yeah, that was the agent brand. Holistic support of the agent and the owner. So going beyond, because agents are independent contractors, right? They have harder access to health care. They have harder access to loans for themselves to go and buy homes. So what does a brokerage look like that actually supports the other sides, not just trying to get that split, but provides a better lifestyle overall for those agents? Providing all the latest innovative financial solutions, can be brick or mortar, can be 100% hybrid, 100% remote, can be anything in between. It's not locked into a certain schema there, and certainly has a global perspective. So, but the thing is that a contemporary brokerage requires enterprise solutions. This isn't something that necessarily everyone can go out and do for some of the things I've already mentioned. I don't know, I love this slide. So, the thing is that, we all go out and buy cars, even though that facilitates our business, it facilitates our personal life and all those sorts of things. It's only the pure hobbyist that actually goes and says, I'm really into this, I want to go build it myself. But that's the place that many brokerages and agents are these days. All the responsibility in sourcing and making those decisions, is put on them. So entrepreneurs spend 68% of their time running their business, not growing their business. Those are two different things, and they're often conflated and confused for being one and the same. But they spend all their time actually just operating that business. And the idea of having a really good contemporary brokerage partner is to free that time up, get them back to that 95% of growth, and driving their business. Because how often do you think about, how your car is going to operate? But the few times it does break down. So a contemporary brokerage, need an enterprise solutions, not just simply, duct tape and bubble gum, which is, wonderful. So brokerage as a partner, the way we look at it is that the agent or the brokerage is the CEO, and that when I say brokerage, I mean that kind of smaller boutique brokerage, not the larger ones. And then that the brokerage comes in to support the agent from all the things that we've talked about. So back office, recruiting, training, marketing, client experience, technology, all the financial tools, a lot of the bullet points from the last two slides, all that back end is taken care of by your partner, so you can go spend all of your time growing your business. So going from 32% of your time actually getting out there and growing your business, whether it's social media or meeting clients or whatever you need to do, getting that up to the 95% and not having to worry about whether your car is going to start in the morning or not. Okay, that was my little quick spiel on traditional versus future. But I think this is more generic for anyone, whether you're in construction or whatnot. This should apply to all of you. So I'm going to talk about two things: technology and operations, and staffing. Technology is incredibly alluring. But it isn't always the solution. It sometimes is a way for us to sidestep the actual problem, say, oh, I'm just going to bolt this thing on, it's going to make everything better. And then after you've done that, you put all this resource, time, energy, money into it, you look back and say, that didn't quite get me to where I was looking to be. So one of the first fatal flaws with technology is believing that it will actually solve your problems. I love technology, don't think I don't. It's what I've made my career around. But it shouldn't be the default answer. It should actually be something that maybe you're forced into over time. And one of the things that we do is that we underestimate the time to implement. We underestimate the cost of it. We underestimate how easy it is to integrate. And then at the end of the day, once all that's done, is it even easy to use? Whether it's client-facing or internally facing, those are all often underestimated. And then the newness and that optimism that entrepreneurs have, and most real estate agents fall inside that entrepreneurial mindset, and they believe that that the pot of gold is just on the other side of the next hill, they overestimate the impact on efficiency, and they overestimate the actual impact overall of the solution itself. So here's kind of my view on it. When do you use technology? When do you not use technology? So technology is brilliant for scaling repetitious activities, things that can be automated. I think it was Candy earlier talked a lot about the flows that she had set up, and automated emails go here, the client fills it out, it automatically starts the offer drafting. It sounds like she has her hands pretty well around how to leverage technology, but that isn't always the case. I would say here, user experience. For anyone who has an operations team or ever worked with an operations team in the tech realm, they are usually the biggest complainers and the biggest, they demand the most from technology. But after you put the time in, the output doesn't, the ROI isn't necessarily there. So the way I would think about leveraging technology first is the client experience. How can I improve the client's experience? As a company, we can absorb a lot more than the client can. We can get go a lot longer on using spreadsheets and duct taping things together. But if we are there to serve the client, that we should be investing in overall in the user experience, efficiency, and then the last three are absolutely critical: data storage, finances, and money, and then saving time. But that asterisk is kind of what I've already talked about, and as far as the pitfalls and underestimation and overestimation of technology. What it's not good for, obviously, is bespoke custom experiences. The gentleman who, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but the gentleman who was talking about statistics earlier, who builds these luxury websites, that's a brilliant use of technology, right? That's something that you can actually, that can be bespoke, it can be customized, you can move images back around. It's client-facing, so you're gonna get a decent ROI, or hopefully a really good ROI on that. But generally speaking, if you have complex flows, if you think of Intuit and how long it took them to build TurboTax, where it could actually deal with the full decision tree, it took them probably a decade to do, 6 or 7 years to do. The first couple generations weren't as good, is because filing taxes, if you have even the slightest K1 coming in or investment property here or there, it used to break their mold. Now they can handle it. But generally speaking, you should avoid technology for bespoke. Critical, absolutely essential, is they should never replace human interactions, right? They should facilitate human interactions. They should help create more intimacy, whether it's through your phone or texting these days is absolutely brilliant, but it can't be in place of it. It's like watching a canned video versus me being up here and you can toss tomatoes at me at some point if you know. So never to replace the high-value human interactions. Technology is often can be kind of a hard construct. So if you're looking for flexibility, and this goes kind of back to the TurboTax example, whenever you need flexibility, technology is simply not going to give that to you. Deep behavioral learning, yeah, sure. You can get surveys, you can get transaction data that gives you a lot of top-level stuff, which you can kind of divine what's going on underneath. But nothing supplants actually sitting down with the customer, sitting down with your client and talking to them, or watching them use your product, or watching them move through your service. That kind of deep behavioral learning isn't quite there yet with technology. And it's not good for simplicity, and it's not good for initial velocity. Too often, small companies, individual proprietorships, the like, they're going to lean into technology, but they're going to spend 3 months implementing something, and they missed how many deals during that time, right? So you kind of have to balance off that fact, because adding on technology does not necessarily mean you're going to be moving any quicker anytime soon. Simplicity. Tech is not good for simplicity. It's complex. I have a wonderful picture coming up in a second, but yeah, I mean, certain Apple versus MS-DOS, like from the early days. There are certain technologies, without a doubt, that are incredibly simple, an automatic transmission versus a manual transmission. But generally speaking, technology can be very difficult, especially when you're talking about integrating systems across the board. So sometimes there is simplicity, but I think at a larger level, it's not simple at all. If you think about the cost of hiring a developer is like $250,000 full weight for more of a junior one. So I would put forward this as like a litmus test that you could all use when thinking about, should I implement, should I move forward, should I not move forward? Will the benefits outweigh the cost of integration, the time and the resources? You really sketch out how much is it going to cost me, how long is it going to take me to learn it, or how much is it going to take my dev team to learn it, depending on what situation you're in. And once you've arrived at that, pros and cons sort of thing, double all the expenses, double the timeline, because that's, I mean, just like, with construction work, how often does it actually end up on time? Usually you're going over budget, things change, you find out that there's black mold or something, and the same thing happens with technology. It can completely unravel, take much more resources than you might have initially anticipated. So give it a really hard test there. And how certain are you that if you do integrate this, it's going to solve all of your problems? I mean, I love gadgets. My wife loves gadgets even more than me. She was one of the first people to buy the Google Glass, if anyone remembers, from about 8 or 10 years ago. Sounded really cool. It was kind of cool for what it was, and maybe, in 50 years we'll end up back at that same place. At the end of the day, it was just a really cool gadget. It didn't actually advance her life, get her closer to people, or bring her any happiness other than the purchase and the kind of the cool factor. And this is one of the things that I love, without a doubt. Question your own assumptions, or get someone else to question your own assumptions. Find that person who disagrees with you all the time, pitch them your plan, and let them just completely rip it apart and see if you can rebut it all the way through. Because there might be another path. There might be another way to look at the problem where that's not exactly what's needed. This is a tough one to get into, but we can get on the phone and we can walk through anything, and we can try to kind of look again, question those assumptions, and see if it's something that you really absolutely need. And then, is the solution urgent? Is the solution critical? Something I said earlier about operations. Operations always demands for better interaction. They want a new tool. They want something along those sorts of lines. But if you're looking at the kind of the key metrics that drive the company, and then you look over here and you look at optimizing operations. If you're a large company, yes. If you're a small company, though, a 10% increase in operational effectiveness is not going to translate into a 10% increase in revenue next year. That's just not the place. So can you use those resources, that brain space, to actually drive the revenue, to actually drive the expansion? So that's one thing to look at. Another one is, and I talked about this earlier, is it for internal or external customers? And specifically in the field that we're in the industry that we're in, I would put 90% of my resources into that client experience, and just the late nights will be mine, but not the clients. You have to shift that workload, take the workload off the client, put it onto yourself. So if there's an opportunity to create a luxury website, go ahead and do it. I think that's a brilliant idea. That up-levels your brand, it up-levels the client experience. I'm going to beat up on operations a little bit more, but if it's for an internal client, maybe you just need to hire one more person, or maybe you need to cut something else from that person's list of responsibilities and add this new thing to it. So some technology axioms, and this goes kind of back in the days, like a good spreadsheet goes a long way, right? So, I mean, I know I'm not giving any trade secrets away. This is, a decade ago, but I mean, half of Lending Club, even through the IPO, is built on spreadsheets. And you'd think, a $20 billion company just with a massive tech team would have everything load balanced, and everything would be this beautiful interface, and everything goes into the database. It's just simply not the case, because sometimes the most efficient way to do it is through the old-fashioned way, the spreadsheet. So how long can you delay that integration? How long can you push that integration back? Really figure out what's needed, and as I just said, like, can you hire or increase your human capacity before you go to technology? Because that is an immediate response. You hire someone, you train them over a week or two, they're actually providing, in a way, ROI. But the technology might take you 3 months to get in, might take you another month to train. Now you're 2 quarters down the road, and maybe maybe you could have made a slightly different decision. Talked about that. Underestimate the positive impact of integration. Overestimate the time and resources needed to integrate. I don't know, I've worked with like 7 or 8 dev teams, and they're all late and they're all buggy all the time. And I don't think that was because I just ended up with 7 bad cards in a row. I think that's just the nature of building technology. It's actually more difficult than we think it is sometimes. Touched on this earlier, but this is critical. In the growth stage of your company, use technology to facilitate growth, which probably means giving that technology to the client, but don't look for areas to optimize. And I gave the example earlier because a 10% increase in operational efficiency for a small company does not equate to a 10% increase in revenue over the same period of time. And which one do you want? A large corporation, that the calculus is different, but God bless you all for getting there. But most of us are probably in smaller companies that hopefully are still growing. And as I said, mature companies, of course, use technology, improve your margins, get those operational costs lower. Hurrah. Critical, we talked about this, obviously use it for record keeping, compliance, security, data analysis. Those are no-brainers. That's foundational. Do that right away. And I think that Candy had talked about that earlier as far as her offer drafting and all those sorts of things. And then I've hit on this a number of times, but I'm just going to do it one more time. Use technology for your external clients. We're in the service industry. Serve them first. Give them the plate of food first, and then look back and you can go feed the cooks in the kitchen when their shift's over. Everyone carries the weight. So this guy Kawasaki, an old Apple guy, wrote a book called The Art of the Start, and he came up with this really simple kind of rule of thumb that you can define like an early stage startup's valuation. So it's basically subtract $250,000 for every one of me and add $500,000 for every engineer, because at the end of the day, it's just about getting stuff done. These titles of technology, these titles of strategy and those sorts of things, that's interesting for kind of a larger company, but I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity when you're starting something up to actually sit back, take some time, let's lay out the strategy for the next 12 months. It's more of an ongoing hopefully there's one person in the group and not everyone ignores them. There's one person that's going to go over and actually initiate that act, get over that initial inertia of just standing still and go do something. So really key into, that's key for the leaders. You should be at the top pulling, but it's also a way to think about and vet your staff when you go through. You're really looking for people who are action-oriented, who are problem solvers, who are bright, they're introspective, and they're ready to move the needle. Even if they make mistakes, I'd rather take someone who's trying to